3 of them. All right, so I'm going to call this meeting to order. If everybody will stand with me, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Ms. Manning?
Here.
Mr. Boger?
Here.
Mr. Haynes has an excused absence. Mr. Goldberg?
Here.
Mr. Jackson?
Here.
Mr. Colon has an excused absence. And Mr. Cole?
Here.
So, Becky, do you start with the, what's
Yeah,
that?
do the minutes.
The minutes?
We'll approve the minutes. I gotta add all of this to the script. All right, so, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve?
I'll second.
Second. All right, let's see.
Need to
Josh,
vote.
we gotta call, like, all those in favor.
Oh, we've got to vote on it? Okay, good
Not roll
deal.
call vote, they can do it.
Yeah, so, call the vote for the minutes.
All in favor? Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. We've
Yep.
approved the minutes.
Okay. This is a public hearing for review of a request for a variance per Cocoa Beach Land Development Code, Section 3-31I, to allow a pool to be constructed with an east side setback and a west side setback less than the required minimum of 8 feet. Any individual, including the applicant, staff, witnesses, or members of the public who plan to speak or offer testimony during the public hearing, please rise and be sworn in by the clerk.
All right, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in these proceedings?
Yes.
You have been sworn. And then for me, I was sworn, I'm presenting tonight, I was sworn in earlier, and I have record for the
Perfect.
documentation for the record.
Perfect. Okay, a variance is quasi-judicial in nature, which requires our public hearing to comply with procedural requirements established in Florida law. Quasi-judicial proceedings are less formal than proceedings before a circuit court, but are more formal than some other types of meetings, and must follow basic standards of notice and due process. Decisions must be based on competent, substantial evidence. Please note that only competent, substantial, fact-based testimony or evidence will be considered by the board in its deliberation and voting on this item. Pure speculation or mere opinion not based on competent facts cannot be legally considered by the board in weighing the appropriateness of the variance. Lay testimony with fact-based support may be considered competent and substantial evidence. If you intend to speak, please keep this in mind. When you come forward, please state your name clearly for the record, whether or not you've been sworn in, and your qualifications or interest in the matter. Clerk, has this item been properly advertised?
Yes, the item was properly advertised, and the record includes the documentation.
Okay. At this time, if any board member has a conflict of interest that would prohibit them from voting on this item, please disclose this for the record, complete the required voting conflict form, and provide it to the clerk. Any conflicts?
I'm a neighbor, if that's a conflict.
Okay. Would it affect the value of your property?
No.
None.
All right. Also, at this time, any ex parte communications should either be disclosed by identifying the subject of the communication and the identity of the person, group, or entity with whom the communication took place to the best of your recollection, or any correspondence be provided to the clerk and made a part of the public record. In addition, each member of the board may identify the existence of any investigations or site visits he or she has conducted or any expert opinions received.
Visited the site.
Okay,
Same
okay.
I looked looked at like an aerial view as far as like on like Realtor, because I wasn't able to get out there, but.
Okay,
No, I just reviewed the package.
okay. Okay, all right. Staff, would you please proceed with your presentation?
All right, this is agenda item C1, variance at 182 St. Croix Avenue, case number PZ 23-16. I'm Tabitha Armstrong, senior planner. This is just the single-family residence within the RS1 low-density zoning district. The request is for an approval of a variance to have a pool constructed with an east side setback and a west side setback less than the required minimum of 8 feet. And that is 8 feet from the vertical, or the water's edge of the pool, the vertical wall of the pool, not necessarily any decking or anything like that. Applicant is proposing to construct a 75-foot by 15-foot swimming pool along the south side of the property with an east side setback of about 2 feet 11 inches and a west side of 1 foot 11 inches. The owner is a world record swimmer requesting the 25-yard pool for personal training purposes. That is the, I believe the acronym is FINA regulation for the lap pool. The background, a little bit of background. Owners purchased the property in 2021. Current structure is a single-family home built in 1968 in the lots off St. Croix Avenue. Lots 80.75 feet wide, 130 feet deep. The approval of this variance does not guarantee the approval of a building permit. There is a potential for some stormwater mitigation on the property based on the maximum lot coverage amounts. This was something that I spoke with the city engineer with prior to even them submitting for the variance, just to make sure that the project was even feasible before moving forward with a request for you. And there is an ability to work with some things to be able to make that okay, if should you approve the variance today. So property survey in the packet, you can see with the impervious surface how we're talking about when the pool gets added in, it kind of reaches those, I think it would be at like 62% or so. So there's a small area that they could offset some stuff for stormwater mitigation in that. This is the proposed site plan. I gave you guys a larger copy on the back side, just so you can see, because I know in the one in the packet does get a little bit tiny. These are photographs of the property, some aerials from MLS. The green arrow there is the backyard of that property. A little bit closer on there. And then next are just some of concept photographs for the pool that they are talking about, just to give you guys a better visual representation of the type of pool and what that would look like. There is also a photograph that was provided by the applicant today. That's from, I believe Fantasy Pools is their, the contractor with it. That's what they received. I will need that one back, but please feel free to pass that around to see. Just another concept photograph of kind of what these pools look like.
Can I ask a question?
And
When they say the vertical wall of the pool.
Yes.
Ron, hold on just a second until she
I'm
finishes.
almost done.
Yep.
Okay,
And then just as
Just
usual,
wanna
your
clarify
criteria
something.
for approval. You might see in the background, we talk about this, the different lots in the, on that street, surrounding lots, because one of your criteria for approval is special conditions and such. So it would just kind of go with what you guys determined, but I did create, I don't know how well it was calculated. Just kind of a, you would need a 91-foot wide lot in order to fit a 75-foot pool within the 8-foot setbacks where a variance would not be needed. The ones that are highlighted are the ones that on St. Croix that do have the 91-foot or above lot. There's a couple more on Andros if you were to consider that, and then everyone on Banana River has the ability to do so. So just little extra information if you guys needed, because there is that requirement about special conditions, just kind of giving you the actual numbers that exist for you. And I can bring that up later if you need. All right, that is all that I have. Questions?
when you say the vertical wall of the pool, what exactly is the vertical wall? Is the end of the deck or just the pool itself?
Water side edge. So that's the edge of the water. It does not include any kind of decking or anything like that.
So when you say water edge, it only leaves 2 feet on each side, that doesn't include the deck at all then? So the deck would go butt up against the neighboring property?
And I do believe in here, the plans have a 6-inch clearance between property line and deck on one side, and I don't see that documentation on the other side.
6 inch.
And that's a part of the stormwater mitigation that would need to be done prior to the approval of a building permit if the variance were to be approved.
Yeah, that was kind of.
So that would have to be, just because if the variance were to be approved, like I said, it does not necessarily give the approval of a building permit. That's something that would need to be mitigated with the property owner, the contractor, and city staff to make sure that project would be feasible in that way.
Being this a water edge property and there is a dock on the property because I visited it, is there any specifications in there for emergency as far as getting around this? Because with 1.5 feet and 2 feet on one side, if you need to get a stretchers or anything in there, is there anything like that?
There's nothing in our code language for that. I did
Okay.
have the chief building official review these plans as well from a building code perspective to see if there was anything that he had with pools and things like that. And he said everything was, fine with what the code that
Okay.
he would have to do.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Do you have any idea what the reasoning was behind the rules they set up originally for
For
8
the
feet?
8-foot
8 feet, yeah.
setback? No, I'm unsure of that. It's how the code's been since I've been in the
For
city.
properties that are more narrow, does it also work in terms of a percentage change? Or
No,
is it
like how
mandated-
docks have that, 20% to the thing, or sometimes
pie-shaped
setbacks will
lot,
have,
yeah.
yeah. They don't have that. It would be similar how we've seen the pie-shaped lots come for the variance because we don't have that kind of percentages in there, similar with this one.
So based on the existing property, if you put in a pool to go according to code, how long would the pool be then?
Pretty short.
Do my math on me, 80 minus the 16, that's 64,
66.
right? 64?
So the only egress from the home to the shoreline or the dock would be 2 point some feet. That would be the widest to get
Yes.
around, to get
Yeah,
down.
and then the owners, applicants are here as well, so a lot of some of these questions they can address
okay.
as
Thank you.
as well after me. Whenever you guys are ready.
Is this an all or nothing? I mean, if it votes no, does that mean there's no pool going in, or they'll put in a?
I think that's a question for the applicant to
Okay.
what that would
But
be.
yeah, this doesn't deny them the ability to
I know-
put it
I
in
know
the
that.
pool. Yeah, just the
But
variance.
as
Just for
far
their
as their
benefit.
plans go, I'm not sure that'd be, but they are, their turn is after you guys are done with questions for me, so. And then you can always ask me questions after.
Have you heard from their neighbors at all on each
No,
side?
there's been no public comment that I have received. I know we have additional visitors here. I'm not sure if they're, but
Okay.
there's been no public comment, no
Okay.
emails. Mailers were sent out, the sign is up, so they've all had the notice, but I have not received anything.
You're on the point.
Is the 8-foot setback, now you say that's for a pool, but is that for any other structure as well?
So, no, and the code part is in the back of the packet as well, but the 8-foot is just for the waterside edge. We currently do not have any kind of, code language for decking. Like decking could technically go up to the property line.
I'm talking about,
Like-
let's just say for a utility shed or something of that nature.
An accessory structure would have 5-foot setbacks,
Okay.
like a shed or something.
Okay. All right.
Tabitha, you said the other issue is a pervious coverage. Did they hit their 60% limit with this?
They are a little over the 60%, but that's why I included the full code text, because as you can see, the underneath that highlight for the maximum lot coverage, it talks about lot coverage as defined. It may be adjusted when elements of low-impact development, as detailed in another section, and extensive stormwater management as approved by the administrator and/or city engineer. That's why I discussed this with the city engineer prior to even having them apply for the variance,
And they identified that it was possible
to make sure that it was possible to have this. So again, that would be held at the building permitting stage, should the variance be approved, to complete that kind of stormwater mitigation.
So kind of playing off that a little too, with the permeable, I know like pavers are looked at differently than like poured concrete. Does that play?
I know
like,
there's
this is like
some
poured
calculation, I think
concrete?
for the most part, the pavers are roughly the same, but there's some small calculation depending on the type of pavers. That's more with the city engineer and those kind of what his calculation is, depending on the type of services or materials that are used.
Yeah, because some of it will,
I did
water
not
can
go
penetrate,
far
yeah.
enough into the detailed conversation with him to determine that at this stage.
Okay, just out of curiosity, I just know it does matter in
Yeah,
Cocoa
there's
Beach.
different materials and things
Yeah.
that could be used to help
Yeah,
mitigate that
versus
percentage.
just poured
Yes.
concrete.
How far away did you say this was from the water's edge?
2 feet.
With the proposed setbacks, I believe 211 on one side and
No,
111
no, but from the
on,
water side.
oh, water side? So it does meet the regular code setbacks of 15 feet for water side, so the rear setback is there's no variance
So it's
request or
the
anything
neighboring
there.
sides that are,
Yes, it
are-
is the
are
two
hitting
sides
the-
of the property.
okay.
Yeah, the one to the seawall is fine, there's nothing.
So what you're saying, but if the variance were changed for this particular application, it would not have any effect on any variances, like the 5 foot for a shed or anything of that nature. Is that correct?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Okay, it's an 8 foot variance for water's edge for a pool
It's the 8-foot setback.
setback. And you told me it was a 5 foot setback for like if you had a utility shed or something. By changing the variances on this, if it was to go to 2.5 feet, would that change the variances on any other structure?
No, this is
Oh.
only applicable for the pool.
Okay,
That's why the variance request is very specific, talking about east side setback specifically for that, west side setback specifically.
Okay.
It is not applicable to any other, does not alter their other setbacks.
okay. I just wanted to get that clear. Thank you.
You said it's 5 feet from the house?
If that, I believe it's 6 feet for the water's edge from the
From the
home.
water's edge, okay. We're filling all this land in.
which
This
I'm
has
not
been a tough
familiar-
week for pools in that neighborhood. We've had to backwash our pool at least 2 or 3 times because the amount of rain we've received. I can't imagine what would happen if we weren't home.
That's the thing.
I mean, in our house, we would have flooded our own home, but not the next door neighbors, so.
So the pool overflows, comes into your house
You can.
If it overflowed, yeah.
or go in the river?
Depending on the
Yeah.
sloping and
I
everything.
had that at my old house.
Well, we're set back from the river. It's kind of a U-shaped home, so.
I don't have a pool anymore. Do we have any more questions for her?
No further questions?
No.
Thank you. For anybody who's not familiar with our proceedings, what you'll see next after the staff is the applicant will come up and provide any testimony or bring any expert witnesses. We'll then go into a time where the board will have questions for you or any of the expert witnesses. Staff may have some questions or additional clarifications for you. And then at that point, we'll open it for public comment, which you'll be able to come up and make comment. Then additional responses from the staff for any clarification of what was discussed. And then additional responses from the applicant may be to the comments made by staff. At that point, we'll close for public comment and we'll be having a discussion from the board amongst the board members prior to having a motion and a decision on the case. If the applicant will please proceed with your presentation.
Yeah.
With the mic, we do need you there, sorry.
Yeah, that's confusing.
That table.
So we're Zena and Steve Courtney. We're the applicants requesting the variance. We just moved here from Seattle. I swam competitively in college, and I continue to swim competitively as a master swimmer. Like she indicated, I do compete at the world level, and we retired and we moved to beautiful Florida, Cocoa Beach, and our dream is to have, my dream is to have a 25-yard pool in our backyard. So when we bought the house, I had been looking for 2 or 3 years for a house on the canal, and this one came up, and I kind of just jumped on it, the pool in the backyard, not understanding the restrictions, etc. So we started remodeling last fall, and it's near completion. So we used the general contractor from down the street, Collins General Contracting. You guys, he's a local contractor. So the inside of the house is brand new. We took everything down except for 2 walls. So state-of-the-art HVAC, electrical, et cetera. So that's all with the building permit. So my dream is to have a 25-yard pool. It's not much bigger than a standard pool, so we do have a rental house with a 15-yard pool, so it's a little bit bigger. It's not like a 50-meter Olympic pool like the Cocoa Beach Aquatic Center. It's like the size of the width. So my husband's a combat veteran. He also does swimming for therapy. He spent 10 years in bomb disposal. He's also a retired police of 27 years in Seattle, so that's part of his stress reducer. He is now retired, and I do also have an elderly mother who's like 90, is going to be living with us, and so she likes to do the water sort of exercise, but good for her joints and her blood pressure. And I have a disabled brother-in-law who's in a wheelchair who would also be using our pool for therapy. He lost the ability to walk, and so my sister, who's a recreational therapist, it would be easy for her to use that to hopefully bring him back to maybe being able to stand, not necessarily walk. We've talked to our neighbors. My west side neighbors are here. Our east side neighbors they recently bought the east side house and did a whole renovation in the backyard, and they have no problem with how the pool would be set up. Our dogs get along great. The pool is just very simple, like the picture shows. It would be visual appealing. I'm not going to do a lot of splashy waterfalls, rocks, and just a very basic lap pool. So, anything else you'd like to add?
And it's 23 years, not 27.
Oh, sorry. Any questions?
Well, welcome to Cocoa Beach. Yeah, welcome to the neighborhood. So would it be a disaster to have a 65-foot pool or a 70-foot rather than a 75?
So, like the competition pool for winter is 25 yards. In the summer, it's 50 meters. So 25 yards is the smallest pool. There are older pools that are 20 yards, 60 feet. When you do intervals, kind of like at a track meet, the typical distance is 50. So if you have a 20-yard pool, you have to do 2.5. Or you could do an interval distance of 100 meters or 100 yards, so then that would be 5 laps. So it just makes it a bit more challenging to do the structured workouts that we require to remain competitive at that level. So
Do you have future plans to, say, put a boat? Are you thinking about a boat or wave runners or any type of water vehicles?
we do, and we've discussed that, and if we need to have additional deck space, we get some sort of engineered cover for more I don't know, something. We over the pool, we'd put something over the pool to provide passage from the dock to the house if it was,
You mean like a bridge?
not a bridge, but something something on the ground that you would
But
pull
you
up
only
and
go,
put
you're
down.
only gonna have 2.5 feet on one side and 1.5 feet on the other.
Right,
Okay,
yeah. Yes, we understand that.
okay.
So I'm not thinking it would be a bridge, but it would be, maybe a portable deck, like made of planks, and, it could be lowered down on the one side of the pool to give you more room to go back and forth.
She was an engineer.
I'm sorry. My background is engineering, so it would, yeah. So that would-
I guess mine's more of just a comment of being a longtime resident here, and why I think there's concern about the grass on either side. If you've lived in Cocoa Beach for a while, you know that flooding is a real problem, and not having the grass to absorb. So I think that's kind of why. And you're saying you're from Seattle, so which I guess it rains there too. But just I think that's just to keep in mind as you're just figuring out projects as someone else that's lived here a while, that once the space is gone, it's gone, and absorbing wise. So hopefully there isn't anything. I mean, your neighbor's here, so obviously they'd know, but just as I've lived in 2 different homes here, and it is different when you live on the islands as far as,
Right, we'd be using some sort of, we don't really have a decision on the deck.
yeah.
But we would.
Well,
have
however
to-
you're doing, just as a piece of whatever the end of the today is, just keep in mind that
Right.
once the grass isn't there, like there is an absorption. So just in my experience, that's all.
Do you have a pool in your Seattle house?
We do not. We do have a pool
Where
in
did you go
the
when
rental
you
that we're living
wanted to
in.
practice?
Sorry?
Where did you go when you wanted to practice or
Well, we
swim?
lived 8 minutes from the indoor 50-meter pool. So we went there. But it was indoors. It was built for the Goodwill Games back in 1980, so
Oh, yeah.
it's a high-tech facility. So. And this pool would come with a chiller, so I'm actually a lifeguard at the Cocoa Beach Aquatic Center as well. I'm helping them out because they were a little short of lifeguards. That's kind of one of the things I have in my back pocket. I'm a swim coach, Red Cross Health and Safety Director. I mean, I've done a lot of things like that. But so the other problem I have with the Cocoa Beach pool is it's super hot. In the sun. It's 88, 90-degree water, and training water is like 79.
Yours will be too. It'll be 92, 93.
Well, we're gonna have a chiller, is my point. It's in
Okay.
the design. The chiller is in the design. So then I could, because it's really hard to do the high-paced training. in hot water. So,
That makes sense.
Other questions?
I'd like to hear from the neighbors.
We will get there. Any other questions? Thank you, guys.
okay, thank you.
Do I have to go up here and have to swear in?
Yes.
Yeah.
Who's going to swear me in?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in this proceeding?
I do. Hi, I'm Rick Kingsland. My wife Tammy and I, we've got the White House on the corner right here next door. I'm here because I had no idea what we were talking about. So the first thing I want to do is indict this process. Send us some plans. Let us see what we're talking about. I probably wouldn't have even had to show up if I knew what was coming in next door. We have no idea when we get that little yellow thing in the mail what's going on. So here we are. Now that we know what's going on, Tam and I have talked. Not our cup of tea, but that's not going to affect us in the least. As long as this thing never goes Airbnb, then I don't have to worry about kids screaming right outside the head of my window over here. If that were to happen, I got a huge problem, but don't see that happening, right? Don't want to make enemies with our new neighbors coming in over there before they ever get in there. So, again, like I said, my bigger issue is I had to come all the way down here just to find out what's going on. I would like to have had some clue what was happening before I got here. I could have made a decision and so forth. But on the pool itself, as I see it presented, we don't have an issue with it. We don't anticipate it interfering with us in the least. So. Anything else?
Thank you. All right, any additional questions from staff?
No, I don't have
clarifications?
anything, just if you, when we do receive the mailers, I can't remember fully on the.
Sorry?
I was just gonna say, when you do receive the mailers, if there's anything else, there should be the email that's on there. When you receive it, if you have any questions, we can email you the entire copy and stuff. It's just not to send out the whole packet to everyone in the 300 square feet.
I went online trying to find it, and I couldn't find it, so I didn't write an email, so I asked for it, so.
I know the agenda gets posted online, but yeah, short of the agenda, any type of email or, you email with your comments, those would be on the record, and then you can always give a call and we can discuss anything.
Do I have to be sworn in?
Yes. Swear, affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in these proceedings.
Yes, I do. I just wanted to point out that I talks about the 8 foot, and then in K2, it specifically points out waterfront properties. And so I would like to see, maybe Becky, you could speak to that part.
Okay.
So K is talking about the rear. So it's talking about this waterside edge, the waterfront properties. It's only talking about
I'm not sure what
yes,
you're,
that is just for what, so from the rear side, the rear setback on Waters property. The 8 foot is for side and rear for all regular properties. When it is a water side edge property, what Kay is talking about is it needs to be 15 feet from a seawall. Unless, which Tanja was asking me about, is K2, where it talks about we should be no less than 8 feet from the seawall or the side property line. That's discussing before the dead man's is what that is talking about. It's not allowed to be closer than 8 feet, even with a Florida structure engineer comment. That's only talking about the rear side setback. Because of the seawall dead man's, you wouldn't be able to put a pool in closer to the water, the actual water side.
Essentially, we would not be able to even approve a variance of something less than 8 feet by law.
And they wouldn't even need a variance for something for 8 feet, 15, as long as they had a Florida structure engineered saying it was not gonna affect the seawall, and they would have to sign and seal and put their stamp on it. But that K is talking about the rear side setback.
Thank you.
Another question for you while you're there. Do you know of any other pools in Cocoa Beach area that are Olympic size? Regulation size, this
No,
size?
I didn't do a check though, but no, off the top of my head, no.
Any other comments? All right. I'm going to close public comment and then request discussion from the board. Thoughts, questions? Your criteria are on page 2, if anybody is looking for them. The 6th. Yeah.
I know it's not really a concern where there is backup for this, but we are talking about water retention.
Page 2 here.
I'm not even sure I'd like to let it get that far. Because they'll find a way to get it through if they need to get it through. I think this is a dangerous idea, being so close to the seawall, being so large, and being so close to the neighbors. I think there's gonna be overflow flooding onto the neighbors' properties, as well as I don't see any room to get around this thing, and I think it's just a danger for the people that live there.
I can understand the 2 foot or the not on the neighboring sides, just as like I kind of had said earlier about the, once it's gone, and like, I don't know. I just live and I understand that perspective that you're saying as well. I think there is some space though there's more space between the canal though, I think, than the actual pool.
Right.
So it's like touching more of the neighbor's property line.
Yes.
Which you don't know. I mean, we don't live there, but if it overflows or, I mean,
Well, inevitably, you're replacing that much area with water, it's gonna flow down to the neighbor. I mean, they're already up at a level, so it's
If
going
there's any overflow of the pool, it'll go directly into the neighbor's yard, because there's nowhere to go down if it's concrete right to their
Right.
property line.
which I think is why there's the setbacks in the first place,
exactly.
with any of the structures. So that would be my main concern.
And that was my concern also, why they pick 8 feet. There's a reason,
Mhm.
for whatever reason they did. But, I assume it was well thought out at the time. You know, throw that in front of a river. Just-
Yeah.
We have enough problems with our river as it is.
They look like, oh, they do have a pool.
You know, when you look at the special conditions to approve, there really isn't really any special conditions. It's the normal lot with normal property size. The only thing that's really unique and special is the size of the swimming pool trying to fit into a regular residential lot,
Yeah.
which is shoehorning it in, and it's,
Yeah.
and I know, I'm just telling you, we're neighbors, so it's kind of uncomfortable for me. But I just know what we've been dealing with this past week with all the rain, the deluge of rain. And I've been out there in the middle of it, backwashing the pool and not even keeping up with it. So it can be touchy at times. And we don't have our pool, if it overflowed, it would be our own house or goes into the canal. It doesn't go into a neighbor's yard because there's a boathouse in between, so.
My house would flood, my old house would flood into the house as well.
Yeah.
If I did not drain it and had, like, whoever bought it after us had to put.
But the neighbors are protected because we have,
There's the space.
Yeah, we have a
That's
boathouse.
also my concern as well. I understand why, the desire for it.
Yeah, I'm personally struggling with
You're trying to shoot.
any special conditions. I think it's
Yeah.
common lot size.
Set this variance.
I'm concerned that granting it would be, if we did it in accordance to ensure that we allowed for adherence to an international standard for pools, that would be granting an authority to the international standard we don't apply elsewhere.
But the thing is by granting this variance, you're gonna grant it for anybody else who wants to do this.
So
that
Victor,
true?
that we don't hold precedence with variances, so every
Not
variance request
technically.
is
They're individual.
independent. And so you can use the same reasoning, however, there is no precedent set by a variance. But to your point, we do need to be consistent in how we apply the LDC.
That being said,
I don't want to argue with you, but we sat in a meeting talking about a 6-foot fence versus an 8-foot fence, and it was actually said, well, then everybody in the neighborhood could have an 8-foot fence.
Well, again,
And it would
to
be.
your point,
It's
there's
not technically
consistent reasoning.
it's not technically a legal precedent, but there are practicalities
Right.
that,
Yes.
yeah.
well, I do ask you that, Becky. I know each case is individual, but if we approve something for somebody, can't someone come back when we don't approve them and sue based on that we're not treating them like we're treating somebody else?
There can be a class of one lawsuit about that, yeah. If somebody
I
can
guess
say
that's
that
where
they
I'm
are
coming
treated
from.
We
differently.
that's
do
a good
make
point.
ourselves vulnerable. Technically, we are only supposed to take each case on an individual basis.
I understand.
And I think even without a lawsuit perspective, I think we agree to be on the board to be consistent, fair, and equitable across. So Jay, to your point,
Yes.
I think we need to be consistently applying our thought processes.
Absolutely.
Flipping the question a little bit, are there any of the 6 that you guys can see do apply?
No.
The real issue is just the length.
Yeah.
I mean, everything, God bless, welcome. We're glad to have you, and you're doing a wonderful job on your home. It's beautiful what you've done to it. And, we've all been watching it, and you guys have done a great job. But one thing you don't understand, I don't think you do, or maybe what happens in our neighborhood with this deluge of rain that comes. If you're not there that day and it comes, it's going to be flooding the neighbors with you only when you're boarded up. You're right up against their border wall. Sure.
Well,
Actually, it's.
so technically, we're closed to public comment. It's got to be discussion among us.
okay.
You can share that with the board, but we've got to keep it in here. Not in this case, but other cases, it does get out of hand,
Okay.
so, unfortunately. Any other questions, thoughts, discussion?
I do not.
Any motions?
Make a motion, we vote.
So if you want to use one of the sample motions, either motion to approve or motion to deny.
Start with V1.
You have two.
There's V1
Oh,
and V2.
well, we've got for two, with two different, and we're voting on each setback.
Oh, for each side has to be
Yeah, so
individually
we'll
voted for.
vote through both. But if you want to take the first one, either in the positive or to deny.
No, I'll take the negative side in a sense, okay? In case number PZ 23-16-V1, I move to deny the variance request due to the fact the applicant has not satisfactorily demonstrated all the standards required by the LDC, section 4-39D, to grant a variance have been met. The specific standards not met include standard number, state standard number,
You have to state which of the six.
Of the 1 through 6.
of the 1 through 6, yeah. I'm sorry, I don't have my glasses.
It's also in your criteria for approval on
Yeah.
the other page. You have to state, in your motion, you need to state which of the criteria you feel that it does not.
I can't see one that it meets. 1
So-
through
Say
6.
all the
six.
criteria.
1 through 6, yeah.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right. Call the vote.
All right. And the roll call to deny, in PZ 2316V1, Mr. Goldberg.
I vote to deny.
Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Cole,
Deny.
what?
Deny.
Vote to, so yes to deny.
Yes, yes.
Ms.
The
Manning,
denies are tough.
to vote.
No.
Mr. Book.
Agree. Yes, but no. I guess
Gotta work on this.
it's unanimous.
It's
It can be.
legal language for a purpose. You have to
Yeah.
vote yes to deny, which is
Yeah.
confusing.
So, and the motion to deny carries 4-1.
On the second variance. Motion, either to approve or to deny?
Case PZ 2316V2, I move to deny the variance request due to the fact that the applicant has not satisfactorily demonstrated all the standards required by LDC Section 4-39D to grant a variance have been met. I feel the specific standards not met include 1 through 6.
Second?
A second.
Okay. Roll call vote for a motion to deny in PZ 2316V2. Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Ms. Manning?
No.
Mr. Boger?
Yes?
Mr. Goldberg?
Oh, yes, sorry.
Very similar. I never noticed.
Motion to deny carries 4-1.
So, sorry to say, the variance has been denied. Thank you for applying.
Can you explain what?
So with, Becky, is that okay?
Sure, well,
Provide
I
some
can,
discussion, or,
I can just tell you, in Cocoa Beach, As in most Florida cities, there's criteria for approval of a variance, and those are up there. And what the board did just now is they determined that you didn't comply. You have to comply with all of them, and they didn't think you complied with any of them because your lot is not an unusual lot. You are not being denied a right other people are typically allowed because of the size of your lot, for instance. If you just read them, they didn't think that they applied. Okay, thank you.
All right, so are we at staff reports? We're at general public comment. So open the floor for general public comment. Hearing none. Staff reports? Member reports?
Next tentative meeting, August 16th, we do have a case, so it will not.
Okay.